Spin will let you conduct a text search, a keyword search, or an advanced search. None of these searches will communicate with each other. These are not filters, they are different ways of searching the Spin database. So you can do a text search, but that doesn't mean you can set keywords or other advanced features to affect the text search. Only your additional filters, which we reviewed under Preferences, will apply across all three searches. A text search will respond to whatever terms or phrases that you enter, much like doing a Yahoo or a Google or a Bing search. However, if I were to type stem cell, Spin would recognize this as what's called an AND relationship, meaning it will search for both terms, stem and cell, in the database funding opportunities. I could change this, though, and have it search for either stem or cell. These are the types of search logics that text search will respond to. I could also have Spin do an exact phrase search by simply enclosing the phrase stem cell in quotation marks. Now let's see what happens when we press locate funding for stem cell. This first search, an exact phrase search for stem cell, has brought almost 300 funding opportunities. Now, that includes a lot of opportunities that do not have current or future deadlines, and will include opportunities that have been temporarily suspended. However, every search page, whether it's a text search, keyword search, or an advanced search, will bring up a results page that looks like this. You'll have the Spin ID number on the left, the opportunity title, hyperlinked to the full funding opportunity, the sponsor's name, a sponsor number, if available, deadline, funding amount information, and a couple of columns over here that I'll explain in a moment. All results pages will look like this, and you can also adjust the way that the information is presented to you. Simply drag one of these categories up into the top bar, and your search results will be filtered. I often like to search by sponsor name, so I'll move the filter into the top bar, and my search results will be sorted alphabetically by sponsor. This is really helpful if I'm searching for federal opportunities. Then I can look for the NIH agency or the NSF directorate. We can also have it subsort. Whatever you put second will be sorted within the first category. So now I have it sorted by sponsor name first, and within each one, deadline dates. Now let's take a look at one of the funding opportunities. It doesn't matter which one I'm going to pick, because all of them will be presented in the same type of layout. So let's pick the Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund's clinical program. If I click the opportunity title, I will get a pop-up box that will feature several little tabs, starting with opportunity description, eligibility requirements, funding guidelines, and ending in sponsor information. The first tab includes the synopsis for the program. Synopses in Spin are only about 2 to 3 sentences, maybe a paragraph. They're very brief descriptions, but the program objectives can be very long, especially for federal opportunities. The Opportunity Description tab will have a lot of valuable information, so don't skip past it too quickly. You not only want to read the synopsis for relevancy, but you want to look through the program objectives for any specifics about what this agency is looking to fund. Also, at the bottom, you'll see a list of keywords. The keywords are InfoEd Global's way of categorizing research opportunities in the database. These are not necessarily going to be the same as your disciplinary interests or the types of words that you might use to describe your research, but it should give you an idea about how Spin classifies a funding opportunity, and you can use the keywords to look for relevant, similar funding opportunities. To the right, you get additional information about the funding opportunity, including any sponsor funding opportunity number, and any relevant deadline dates. We see that the one that I selected had a January 2018 deadline, so it's not currently active. But if I wanted, I could have filtered this result out simply by changing my active filters. What's also important is that you get to see the last date that this opportunity was revised in the SPIN database and when the SPIN anticipates the next revision. We can see that on December 18, someone at InfoEd Global reviewed this funding opportunity for currency and accuracy, and they will do it again later this year on November 1st. Before we move on to the other tabs, I want to point out a few options, including the ability to email this funding opportunity to yourself as an HTML or a plain text file. You also have additional options to find similar opportunities, or, as I suggested a moment ago, refer to the keywords at the bottom to see what other opportunities are similarly classified. Finally, over on the right, we see a bright blue button that will let you bookmark this program. I will show you how to bookmark programs a little bit later. Now, let's take a look at the other tabs. First, eligibility requirements will tell us who or what is eligible to apply to this type of funding opportunity. Not every funding opportunity will have information in each of these subcategories. As we see, citizenship requirements and sponsor target groups are both left blank. So as you're setting up your active filters, remember you may or may not be able to pick up some of these opportunities if there's a lot or very little information filled into these categories. Funding guidelines tells us a little bit about how much money might be available as well as for how long. And sponsor information will provide us a way to contact the sponsor to learn more about this funding opportunity. Back on our search results page, let's take note of a couple of options that are now available to us. Once I did my search, I got a new blue button at the top of the screen, an option to save the search. What this will let me do is name this search, and let's just call it stem cell practice, so that I can run this search again at any time in the future without having to change anything about my active filters. I can also set up my preferences for email updates. I'm not going to set any preferences now, but if I wanted to, I could have them come as HTML, plain text, and I could have them come daily or weekly. Those alerts would only include updates and revisions, not the full 290 list. Saving searches can save you a lot of time in the future so that you don't have to start over if you find a combination of search terms or phrases that really works for you. Saving the search saves everything you had active at the time of that search, and those same filters will apply every time that SPIN looks for and sends you notifications about updates. You can also bookmark programs and create curated lists of individual programs that you want to refer to at a later time. Simply click the blue plus box. This brings up an option to create a new listing or assign a funding opportunity to a pre-existing listing. Simply click Save Changes, and that funding opportunity will be assigned as you want it. The option to bookmark programs is very helpful if you need to create a curated list for a colleague, a student, or some of your research staff. It can also be helpful if you're reviewing funding opportunities quickly and you simply want to save things to come back to later, but you don't want to have to run the search all over again. However, you cannot set up funding alerts or email notifications for bookmark lists. You can only set up funding or email alerts for saved searches. Finally, we see a blue button called Export. If you recall, I showed you some of the additional filters I have for any data that I want to export from my SPIN searching. Now, we have the option to export any or some of the funding opportunities in this list to either Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word. We can either have a summary or we can have a detailed export. What's the difference? A summary report in Microsoft Word is going to look like this screen, the information you see in this grid. A detailed report would include the additional information that I set up in my active filter for exports, which I can see simply by toggling an arrow next to the Funding Opportunities SPIN ID. I can have SPIN export everything that you see on this first page. It won't export everything that it brought up in this first search, just the first 25, 50, or 100 that I have showing on the first screen. However, I can use these checkboxes on the side to tell SPIN that I only want to pick the first two and the fifth opportunity in the list. Then I can export it either as a summary or a detailed report to Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word. I prefer to export a detailed or a summary report to Microsoft Word because it's a little bit easier to read visually and looks much closer to what the search result page looks like in the SPIN database. Again, search results will look the same regardless of whether you do a text search, a keyword search, or an advanced search. Likewise, you'll be able to save your searches, bookmark your programs, or export funding opportunities the same way regardless of the type of search that you do. But let's try our stem cell search without the brackets. If we simply type stem cell, SPIN will search for stem and cell. And the resulting list brings us a little over 300, not too far off from our exact phrase search. I could also have it search for STEM without cell, for example, STEM education, by putting a minus sign before cell. Doing that brings us about double the funding opportunity. As we see, adding the negative sign before the word cell tells SPIN don't include STEM cell in the search results. Now, as we glance at the funding opportunities, we get search results related to STEM education or STEM research. These are the types of search logics that SPIN can respond to. Again, for more information about the search logics, go to Search Help and select Text Search. There, a pop-up box will explain some of the different logics that you can use to get different types of search results or to make SPIN do a more focused search. Now, I'm going to wrap up the text search demonstration with a word of caution. The text search will let you type in any words and phrases that you want to search for, but you should try a lot of different search terms because the text search doesn't work quite the same way as something like Google or Bing or Yahoo. It searches the full program, but it might be that the sponsoring agency is using different phrases or key terms than what you're used to using to describe your research. So it might be better for you to use broad or general research terms in text search than something very specific or focused. Likewise, you may not get any search results for newer key terms or jargon, so try some different phrases and see what results that you get. For example, let's type in mindfulness and see what turns up doing a text search. We get about 400 different search results. However, as I'll show you later, mindfulness doesn't have a keyword match in the keyword search mode. We could also change this to meditation. And we get about 43 search results. There might be many other opportunities relevant for research on meditation, but the word itself isn't bringing them up in this search result. Likewise, mindfulness brought several hundred results, but it's also searching for variations on mind. So keep those in mind as you're playing around with your search phrases in the text search.